Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's Reddit stories are from IDontWorkHereLady. Story 1 is by Reverend Muddy Grimes. Wild Karen in the Pharmacy. I've been asked to post this here. Forgive the formatting as I'm on mobile. Some relevant information. I'm 6'5" and 250 pounds. I don't have the temperament for retail. I work alone as a delivery driver, taking pharmaceuticals from a central warehouse to several stores, all for the same blue-clad company. I'm easily bothered by the way customers treat pharmacy techs. Seriously, guys, it's not their fault your insurance didn't go through. Yelling won't change that. I've become fairly close with a lot of these techs as they have to see me daily. Now to the incident. I walked into the store dragging my cart full of boxes. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt. As I come up to the counter, there's this woman screaming at the tech. This tech was under 20 years old and was backing up as far as she could. The pharmacist was giving a shot and couldn't leave for a minute. I was almost giddy at this, as I had planned for weeks what I would do if the situation ever came up in front of me. I walked up to this pleasantly plump woman with her bleached blonde soccer mom haircut and oversized pink glasses. "Excuse me, ma'am." "What?" she yelled, spinning on her heel and looking me dead in the, I wish I could say well-defined, but why lie, chest. Then she slowly looked up at my not at all handsome or smiling face. "Do you really want to be yelling at someone who can replace your insulin with sugar water?" "Excuse me?" she said, not quite as mean as before. I think what I said was sinking in. Think about it, ma'am. This lady could, although I don't think she would, replace one of your pills with potassium cyanide and no one could even trace it. She stormed off. The tech thanked me and I made my delivery. Just as I was getting the last signature, the customer came storming back. She, of course, was dragging the store manager. "That's him! I demand you fire him!" "I can't. He doesn't really work here." I spent the rest of the week waiting for my boss to fire me. The next day, that pharmacy gave me a plate of homemade brownies. I spent the last 6 years waiting for a chance to use that line again, but so far, no luck. Karens like this deserve something to happen to them, somebody to tell them to F off. I'm not so sure saying that the pharmacist might poison you and kill you if you don't F off is the best thing to do. He's probably going to hear something about that, get reprimanded at some point for that. Still, these are the kinds of things you want to say to people. And I guess it's almost educational because a pharmacist, if they're bothered enough, really can hurt you. They have the power to do so. They always say don't yell at a restaurant server because they could spit in your food, things like that. You don't want to mess with the wrong people. People who are serving you who could do something maliciously behind your back. Like this guy says, though, it's not that they would, just that they could. Our next post is a good story, but after reading it, it's not actually from IDontWorkHereLady because there's no worker interaction happening between them and the ladies. I still want to share it. If I had to label this one, I would say it probably should be in Entitled People. The story is by Jar Jar Mullet. Sandwich Theft Karen. On a day I was off work, I was craving a sandwich at lunchtime on a hot day. I traveled to the nearest subway and got in line. As it was noontime, there were quite a few people in line, and as many places, they seemed understaffed. I get that this is common, but they do what they can. The young teenage girl was the only one to make sandwiches while a manager was ringing up the orders while not helping with the customers. So while waiting in line at Subway with like 6 others, I was behind a group of 3 old ladies, the Karens of this story. While not the spitting image of most Karens, you could tell from how they talked with each other that they were the kind of women with resting B-word faces. So it came time to have their sandwiches made, and of course, every one of them wanted a very custom sandwich. This meat and that cheese is a little too much. I want it toasted off. That is too much. I want to switch the bread. On and on. It was annoying as the one girl tried to keep up but was getting frustrated and stressed. Then the manager stepped over, trying to help, but with these women, they were not happy with anything. After 15 minutes of making each of these ladies' sandwiches, it finally came time to pay. Down to the register they went as my meatball sub was quickly made and passed down. I am plain bread, meat and sauce, a little ranch. So I waited behind them. The manager rang up the old bats, and when the total came out to around $30-ish, they went off again. I'm not saying that they started to squeal. We waited forever to be served, and then you two couldn't even make a sandwich. We want it free, they whined. I was fed up with it, and after it continued for a few more minutes, I stepped up and said I'd take the sandwiches and add them to mine. The old crows grinned and thought they had won. I paid for the 4 sandwiches now and added my drinks and chips. After my card was approved and I was handed my receipt, I picked up my newly 4 bought sandwiches and got my drink. As I started paying, the old ladies went to sit at a table. After getting my drink, I headed to the door to leave with my food in hand. Excuse me, you have our food still. Are you not going to bring it to us? Receipt in hand, holding it up. Nope, I paid money for my food and I will take them back to work. As I headed to the door, this got the old ladies to get up and chase me out the door, which I didn't mind. The staff had enough of them, and I can take some abuse from the crazies. You need to give us our food, or we'll call the cops and have you arrested. I knew this was dumb, but as I said, nothing better on a day off. Please be my guest. I assure you, they won't be doing anything about this. One of them started to pull out a cell phone and call while the others began telling me how much I must love stealing from old ladies and how they knew this person or that person and I would be in jail for a long time. Well, they called. I stood there not saying a word, which is hard to do being belittled, but I had the store crowd watching by this point. Soon enough, a few units pulled up and as they got out, a look of confusion crossed their face. Officer. Are you the guy they called about because you matched the description? Me. Yeah, I am. What'd they call in on me? Officer. You stole their sandwiches and demanded money from them. Me. Well, look into it. Ask the clerk and manager who paid for the sandwiches, and look at this receipt. One officer walked in, spoke with the store, and watched the video while the others listened to these women insinuate that I took food from them. The shock was priceless once the officer came out and confirmed I paid for them and that the store also wanted the 3 trespassed for a disturbance. I was released to leave but decided to get back in and eat. The 3 were banned and left with an even more sour look, and the manager brought over a cookie, telling me it was on her. Just because you're old doesn't mean you're entitled to things. You don't just get free things because it took them a while to do it. I can't stand it when people say, we want that for free or we want a discount. If you're offered a discount or you're offered something for free, then you take it. You don't just demand it because you think the service was poor. You don't like the service? That's tough. You still pay. The next post is by Hickory SB. Walmart follower. So this story happened earlier today around noon. I work as a network installer, which means I work with various pieces of technology that connect to each other in any way, shape, or form. During the summer months, I generally wear khaki-colored pants and an army green t-shirt because I found that I liked the color while I was in the army. I was in everyone's favorite blue US superstore where the employees all wear blue vests with name tags and the store's logo on them. I was in electronics, running a new HDMI cable for the TV wall to try to fix a signal issue. The first guy walks up behind me and says, "You obviously work here. Can you tell me if this mount will work for this TV?" I had at that point had my head essentially in the wall, looking at the back of the cable area, so I was quite surprised to hear the voice, which I could tell was directed at me. I turned and looked at him, not quite sure how to respond. Finally, I managed to respond with, "Actually, I don't." He first started to say, "Oh, you don't know." Then he realized that I meant that I didn't work there, and he apologized and happily walked away. The second guy, however, walked over while I was on the phone with the store's corporate support line trying to figure out an additional issue. He just stood and stared at me with quite an upset look on his face. Keep in mind there for once were a plethora of employees in this electronics department. I counted 4, and none of them were busy with other customers at this point. I never acknowledged him because the conversation I was having was quite fast-paced and all information I needed. I probably could have asked the guy on the phone to stop for a minute to address the guy in the store, but I also don't really like human interaction. So this guy in the store followed me as I moved to the other side of the wall to get a better look at something the support rep was talking about. Finally, a store employee intercepted the guy and helped him. I heard the guy complain for a while about employees walking around ignoring customers while talking on their phones. As a third-party tech, I'm not really supposed to interact with customers anyway. Not as dramatic as some posts, but I wanted to share it anyway. No, I actually really like this one. I've worked on tech projects at times, and you're in the middle of doing something and you're working on it and somebody needs you to do something. I generally would help them if I could, or at least direct them to somebody who could, but this guy was on the phone. How do you not hear the conversation he's having, and it's probably way over your head, and say, this person's going to help me when he's done on the phone? But yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I generally try to avoid human interaction if I can. I am actually an introvert, so I am very similar to this guy. I love tech, and dealing with people not so much. Our stories for today have come to a close. Until we meet again, shameless plug real quick. Click that like or subscribe button, or leave a comment below. Each of these things doesn't cost anything and helps my channel reach more people in the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for listening, and have a remarkable day.